Shirey, episode 21 of the Breakdowns and Breakaways podcast. How's it going today, buddy?
It's going well. I'm excited for the Penguins heading out west. I know. It's
some late games.
Some late games. I know some people aren't a fan, and honestly, as I've gotten a little bit older, it's been a little bit tougher for me to stay up for all of them.
Tomorrow is my day off since I work 410s, so I can stay up and watch this one. And I think I'm going to have a couple, as the hockey players like to call them, a couple of pops.
Okay.
And watch this hockey game. That way, if they're not playing well, the pops will keep me happy. And if they're playing well, the pops will get me a little more happy.
There you go.
How pops tend to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this trip, one, just because it's always fun to have the late night games and being out west, whether that's in Cali or up in Canada. And I know we've said it for 2/3 of the season up to this point that, this next stretch for the Penguins is crucial. But this trip that they're on is literally going to define whether or not they're going to be buyers or sellers at the deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of that is going to have to do with the defensive play of this hockey team, because whether we like it or not, they now are down Gensel and Rust, so they have to depend on some better defensive play, maybe a little bit more positionally responsible play in their own zone.
Counterpoint, though. Hockey is so dumb sometimes, we've already seen it. We talked about it a little over the weekend. Like the Penguins are getting some depth contributions right now. Yeah. So how on brand would it be for them maddening just, Penguins team to be getting
offensively?
Probably Drew O'Connor's going to score a hat trick. Ricard Raquel's going to start a goal streak.
Not Kempe. We were just talking about Rempe on, and how my brain just wants to combine those two. We were just talking about him off air, but Bemstrom, he'll get his 6 goals on the he'll hit 6 goals on this trip, and there goes the 3rd round pick. But no, I do think the safe bet is going to be defensively responsible hockey. They're going to have to get good goaltending. They're going to have to play a style of hockey that maybe they're not accustomed to playing all of the time, which begs the question: Ryan Graves, is he going to figure it out on this trip? Because when I say defensively responsible, the last defenseman on this team that I think of is Ryan Graves. When I say the word defense, I don't even need to put a caveat on that or any kind of extra wording on that. When I say defense, the last defenseman I think of on this team right now is Ryan Graves. I like to say that he's big for nothing. That's my go-to line about him. He is 6'5". He's long. He's a big player who plays like he's 5'2". He's not. I don't understand him. And we saw it on Sunday against the Flyers at the end of the game, where just him not being in the right place, just in the last 30-40 seconds of that game, almost caused that game to go to overtime, because he just wasn't doing anything that a defenseman is supposed to do in the last 30 seconds of the game. Is it salvageable? Because this is I'm not saying that he has been, a defensive stalwart for his career, but this is an outlier of a season for him. So is this, one, salvageable for him? And two, if it's not, or if there's even a question, can you get rid of this contract? Maybe tie it down to something if they do become sellers. What do you do with Ryan Graves?
I think it's a very interesting question, because as you mentioned, while Graves has been absolutely terrible this year, I don't think if you actually went and looked at his number, everybody's like, oh, he actually had some really good seasons with the Avalanche and the Devils, which I don't necessarily agree with. He was definitely a playable top 4 defenseman at some points throughout. But the fact remains that he is far and away having the worst season of his career right now. And while he is in his late 20s, and that's not exactly the point in time when you'd expect a middling defenseman to have an uptick going forward, I think there is at least a somewhat reasonable case to be made that he can be and might even be a little bit better moving forward. I know the on-ice product has not been good, and I did not have super high expectations for him going into the season.
I actually thought it was a good signing, and you were the one who talked me off of it. So,
well, it was so tough for me because, one, at the time I was still working on the beat, and not to say that I was giving different opinions on the beat than I would have if I wasn't, but you don't immediately want to go to being the Debbie Downer, instant negativity. So you always try and find like especially with Dubas having just come in and that being his first free agent class, you try and glean the positives.
When you're on the beat, you're approaching things a lot differently than we are right now, where, like when I was on the Steelers beat, I would not, I don't want to say that I trash Kenny Pickett, but I would not say the things about Kenny Pickett while I was on the beat that I'm saying now, because at some point in time, I'm going to have to go to him for an interview. I'm going to have to talk to him. I'm going to have to get information from him. And you want to keep that professional relationship professional. So there's a lot more that people don't realize of, people management and relationship management with the beat. So, you not saying everything that maybe you may have thought is not, I don't think that's
I tried to allude to it the best I could.
But that's not a knock on you. That's just you playing the game that, covering a professional sports team is. I mean, let's be real. It's a lot of relationship management.
Right. So to go back to the questions you asked, I do think that he can be better. It has been discouraging, though. He was recently, I think it's been 3 games now that he's been bumped down to the third pairing with Chad Ruedel, and I feel like he's been playing worse, which is a little bit alarming. However, like I said, this is far and away the worst season he's had in his career. Again, that could improve. I don't know if it'll happen this season, and I know I get tweets all the time that are like, oh yeah, he wouldn't be the first defenseman to improve after his first season with the team. Look at Sergei Gonchar, look at Paul Martin. Yeah, I get that.
He's not Sergei Gonchar or Paul Martin.
Exactly, and I know Paul Martin even wasn't some like incredible, amazing player, but Graves is not and never has been, never will be even in the same stratosphere as those two. So I don't think that's necessarily a comparison that can be made. But the fact remains that he is in his late 20s, and even if he does improve, however slight or significant that may be, there's still another 5 years left on that contract. And I remember one of the first podcast episodes you did, or that we did after the season had started, maybe 2 or 3 weeks in, you asked me the question, can the Penguins even move that contract right now if they wanted to? And that was before his disastrous season continued, and I wasn't so sure that they'd be able to. Now they're at the point where I don't think there's a GM around the league that would touch that contract without some sort of incentive.
Let's play the game. Let's say that they are sellers. Let's say nothing really changes from this, West Coast trip, and they're still 9 points out, with even less games to play. Or 7 points out, whatever they are right now. If you were to, you brought up Jake Gensel while we were talking before the show. So if you were to say, attach him to Gensel, I know that brings the trade value down of Gensel, but maybe you throw in, if Bemstrom doesn't score his 6 goals, maybe there's where you throw that third. You just kind of attach a pick and Gensel to him to make it a little bit more appetizing. I think with the salary cap going up at least by $4 million this year, and it probably will do the same the year after. And then the NHL is talking about expansion again, which means there's going to be another influx.
I hope they don't.
But there's going to be another influx of money, and then there's going to be another way for teams to get rid of that contract. Maybe you are able to get rid of him. And I know I'm looking extremely glass half full, but I don't think, even though he's been playing worse than we had anticipated, I actually don't think that it's as immovable of a contract than maybe I thought it was at the beginning of the season. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. I think to answer the question of whether you should maybe try and attach him to Gensel right now in a trade. And I know everybody's like, oh, we got to get this haul for Gensel. But again, I've said it a million times now. The mid-first round pick and, high B tier prospect that the Penguins would be getting back for Gensel are not going to have any implications.
The only way the Gensel trade actually makes sense for the here and now is, say they get not to interrupt you, but just quickly, I think if they get a first round pick for him and then their pick for this year ends up becoming a top 10 pick, I think you can trade one of the two of those or both of them and get a nice current haul back for that. Well, that would be the way I would use it, or trade back and get more picks. You'd have to get creative.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So going back to what I was about to lead into is that it's tough to answer those kind of questions right now without knowing what the future direction is going to be. Are they going to try and retool in the offseason and go back at it again next year and try and compete?
That's the vibe I got from Dubas.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost hard not to with the way Crosby's playing.
Yeah, you don't want to waste any of this. Like, I know it handcuffs the team, but I mean, like, again, let's look glass half full. If this team somehow makes the playoffs while Rust is out and Gensel is out, like, there's no way Sid isn't in the Hart Trophy conversation. Even if he's 30 points behind Kucherov
well, he's already significantly more than 30 points. But I'm saying,
like, even if he's that, like, if he's super far behind them, I don't think that should matter, because the game that he's playing is elevating anybody that touches the ice with him, and that's the dictionary definition of the Hart, if you go back to what the Hart is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just as an aside there, but all of that to say, I think that you would be doing a disservice to the team, the fan base, Crosby himself, if you wasted the what he's doing.
Yes. I honestly don't hate the idea of attaching Graves in some sort of Gensel trade, but if for whatever reason the plan is not to try and retool and compete next season, Graves is almost the kind of guy that you want to have around during your downturn, because he's making more than he's worth and he's not a very good player. So Ryan Graves is the kind of guy that, you see the Blackhawks target to fill up their roster.
But here's the other thing with that where I would push back on that idea with Graves. If they do pick in the top 10 this year, they're going to keep that pick. It's top 10 protected. I don't think you want to go into next year potentially being worse than you were this year, because now that could be another top 10 pick or top 5 pick that you don't get. It's going to San Jose.
Well, I mean, it's an unenviable situation no matter what.
I think if I'm them, if they do end up backdooring their way into a top 10 pick, which I guess isn't so much backdooring right now anyways because of where they're at in the standings.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their points percentage, they're not really there, but if you look at the raw point total, because it's been the whole season, the schedule's been so weird that they've had multiple games in hand
so far behind,
like the Thanksgiving break. So obviously, that is a thing, but they could very well lose those games as we've seen this team do time and time again, and then all of a sudden they're right there.
So I mean, they could have
a little Macklin Celebrini action to save the franchise at the end of the Crosby era.
Could you imagine?
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. No, I don't think they're going to finish. They'd have to finish 11th to have a chance at the first pick, because you can only move up 10.
Well, yeah, but if they finish 11th, it's they don't get the pick.
No, it's where the draft pick lands.
No, I know, but if they finish 11th, the pick is going to...
No, if they pick in the top 10,
right,
it's protected.
Right.
So if they finish 11th in the standings...
I see what you're saying, yeah.
That would give them a chance to get the number 1 overall pick. You can only move up 10 picks in the draft.
I got you. I'm with you.
So if they finished 12th, the best they could do is second, and so on and so forth. So we kind of got off the topic. I don't think that Graves is as immovable as I thought he was at the beginning of the season. However, I think if you're in a situation where you're trying to get rid of, it's like this catch-22 in every possible way. If you're in a situation to trade Graves and attach him to Gensel, then that means you're out of it for this year, but you don't want to be worse next year. And so there's just so many things at play here. I honestly think you almost need to find a team and swap defensemen. I don't know, what Calgary's plans are, but, maybe
Ryan Graves for Noah Hannafin. Make it happen.
Well, okay, Jake Gensel, Ryan Graves, and a third. Does that get you Noah Hannafin?
I don't know. I don't know why Calgary would do that. If Gensel resigns, that's a different conversation. But
right.
I don't know that Calgary.
My point is, it's gonna. Anyway. I don't think that would happen.
That would make sense for the Penguins because Hannafin doesn't have a contract either.
Right, and I don't know that that was just Calgary was the first team that came to mind because they have multiple defensemen.
Yeah, you know how I operate. Yeah, though. I take everything very literally.
Exactly. You are a robot. My point being, Dubas is going to have to get creative if he wants to get rid of Ryan Graves. If that's what he wants to do. Now, the other thing that's the easier thing to do is hope that this is an outlier of a year and he finds even level, which I don't even know if that's great for him, but it'll be better than what it's been.
Even level for him is like mid to low end second pairing guy.
If he's a mid to low end second pairing guy or a third pairing guy and can be that consistently, again, with the salary cap going up, I don't think a $4 million, $4 and change.
Right.
I don't think it's that bad of a cap hit that they can't recover from. Again, Sid, I don't know what his new deal is going to look like, but he's currently playing on a sweetheart deal. Malkin and Letang aren't making a ton of money.
Both of those guys are living up to the cap hits. The only
one that's really making an outrageous amount of money is Erik Karlsson. So I don't think that they're as cap strapped as people think that they are, going into next season with the cap going up. Now they're going to have a lot of holes to fill.
Well, so not everybody. I've seen a lot of people talk like, oh, the Penguins might as well just move on from Gensel because they're not going to be able to afford him. They are going to be able to afford him.
Absolutely be able to afford him.
And the biggest reason is because Gensel's making $6 right now. You look at Jeff Carter's cap hit coming off the books. There's that money right there because I don't see Gensel getting $10 million a year.
When you look at what Mitch Marner is making, when you look at what not to keep going with Toronto Maple Leafs, but they're kind of driving the market right now. Look at what Nylander just got. He's not going to go that high. He's not going to make, I don't think he's going to make $11 million because now you're still getting into, top tier. Like that's what Vancouver's looking at. The last number I heard was 11 or 12 million for Pettersson. So, I don't think that that's going to be a number. So I don't think he's going to get into the double digits. I think it's going to be 9.5 if we're being realistic. And I think 6 years at $9.5 million is a pretty fair deal for what Jake Gensel brings to the table. All right, let's switch gears for a second. Let's kind of get off the Penguins for a little bit. I don't know if there's a Penguins conversation that we can have right now that we haven't had at some point in time during this season. I want to stay in the division. And I want to talk about the old school, new school, tough guy, Matt Rempe. Not Adrian Kempe, because that's what I keep wanting to go to, as I said earlier in the show. Matt Rempe has played, 5 games in the NHL?
Yeah,
4 games in the NHL?
So, yeah.
His first shift, he had a fight outdoors against Matt Martin, which is awesome. I mean, that's great. His second game, he was thrown out of it. He had 22 penalty minutes in the second game. Third game, he was thrown out of for a high. Was it a high hit or was it just him being tall hit?
It was both.
Okay. Thrown out of the game for that. And then fourth game gets into a fight with, from the Flyers, Eric Delorier. Yeah.
And then in the following game, he fought Matthew Olivier, who's also a bit of a
Columbus,
tough guy from Columbus, and got his ass beat.
Right, but he's 6'8", 6'7", depending on who you talk to.
Big boy.
Has, from what I've heard, a longer wingspan than Zdeno Chara, and he just doesn't care.
No. The fascinating thing to me about that guy, and I didn't even know who he was until he was called up.
Neither have I.
The fascinating thing to me about him is that, at least from what I've heard from my Rangers people and Rangers people, okay. Well, I don't know how else to say it. Like I I try to from most fan bases, not all. Like the Coyotes, no. The Wild, no. But most teams I have.
Like how you just lumped the Wild in with the Coyotes.
Who cares about the Wild? I do love me some Joel Eriksson, but
yes.
forget the Wild.
Karel Kaprizov too. Like that kid.
Yeah,
that kid's something special.
Anyway, most teams I at least try to keep up with because obviously, unlike the Penguins, I'm not able to watch every single game of every single team. So I try to keep up with other teams by following on Twitter what I deem to be the smartest people of those fan bases on Twitter. So that's what I'm referring to when I say my people.
If you were a Minnesota Wild fan, would you follow Danny Shirey on Twitter, or
Probably
are you not
not
one of the smart ones?
Probably not.
You'd follow Zachary Smith, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's who you'd follow.
I almost said another name that I probably shouldn't have.
It's a good thing I cut you off. We don't need more Twitter beef.
Anyway, my Rangers people that I follow and generally respect their opinions of not only the Rangers, but of the sport, all of them are like, this was not Rempe's game in the minors. Like, he's not some major, big, tough guy. And like, he has fought in the minors before, but not to this extent. Like, that was not his game. And all of a sudden,
it's his game.
Well, now it's his
like
game.
Everybody wants a shot at him.
It's like it became a bit so fast. But the reason we're having this discussion now is because after Matthew Olivier beat his ass, there was a picture that came out today from Rangers practice of Rempe's face where he literally looks like he got hit by a bus.
He looks like, what's his name from the Goonies?
I have no idea.
Oh, what? Lurch or whatever from the Goonies. I can't think of it. I've only seen the movie once.
Eddie will superimpose a picture of him on the video feed.
It's just me. Like, I don't even need to superimpose it. He just looks like me. Just beat up and been through war and growing up in a bad neighborhood. And
all right, let's stay on topic here though. Like, this kid has obviously made a name for himself. Everybody around the league knows who he is now. He's a major story. We're sitting here talking about him on a Penguins podcast. So mission accomplished in that regard. But then, like, and I don't know that you can fully grasp this unless you've seen the picture that we're referring to. But, like, that is not good for this kid, and that's definitely not good for the sport.
I need a minute to think about that before I respond.
You're saying how old is the dude? 21? You think it's good that a 21-year-old dude probably just got CTE from his first 5 games in the NHL?
I think, and this goes back to the conversation we had 2 episodes ago.
Yeah. And I don't think fighting should be banned, but like this bit that he has going on, I'm not for it. It's entertaining for sure.
It's entertaining. I think that he needs to be careful. And I think the team needs to be careful. But I do think going back to, and I know I already know this is going to start a fight between you and me. What I'm about to say is going to start a complete, total fight between the two of us. Going back to, was it 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago maybe, when the Rangers got punked by Scott Wilson. Or not Scott Wilson.
Tom Wilson.
Tom Wilson. Scott Wilson ain't punking anybody.
No, Scott Wilson is not punking anybody.
Tom Wilson, you remember the whole situation I'm talking about where he hit Panarin and
yeah, and the Rangers put out a press release or something like calling out Wilson in the NHL.
And then
they employed Jacob Trouba.
They have Jacob Trouba brought in Ryan Reeves for a hot minute and like just kind of went off the deep end. I think if I were a Rangers fan, I would love this because we're finally the aggressors. Even if he gets his ass whooped by somebody, you have somebody on your team that by default, he's 6'7" on the low end. By default, could manhandle most dudes in the NFL or NHL that he comes in contact with. And if he's going to lean into that, yes, he has to be careful. But I would be ecstatic as a Rangers fan. I realize that this is an old way of thinking about hockey, but I do believe there's a little bit of truth to it. And I keep going back to the Maple Leafs, but I'm going to use the Maple Leafs as an example. Look at the production that Austin Matthews is having this season. Now, he is an alien.
What are you about to say, Eddie?
But the fact that there are guys on the team that have more toughness and more grit, you can't tell me that doesn't allow him to play a little bit more free.
There's been instances this season where Maple Leafs have gotten destroyed with Ryan Reeves on the ice.
Talk to Mario Lemieux. Talk to Wayne Gretzky. Who went to LA with Wayne Gretzky? Who was a teammate of his on Edmonton and went with him to LA when he got traded?
Eddie.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
You talking about McSorley?
Marty McSorley.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know why? Because it was a safety blanket. It was a safety net. It was a safety blanket for Wayne Gretzky.
This ain't old time hockey.
I know it's not old time hockey, but I'm not saying that it is true. I'm not saying that the stats will bear it out. What I am saying is if you play the mental game, if you allow a superstar to think that he's getting more open ice, that's great. Awesome. If Panarin thinks he's getting a little bit more open ice and he's not doing it, but if it's a placebo effect, have at it, buddy, because that makes Panarin that much better. I don't care if it's a placebo effect. I think the idea of having a tough guy that can wreck somebody on your team, it makes people pause a little bit. Look, okay, I'm only going by my experience, okay? Do you know why I liked high school so much? Do you know why I was peaked in high school, Eddie? Where Eddie was peaked in high school, Rob? Because I didn't have to worry about fighting anybody. Do you know why I hated middle school? Because every damn day on the bus, I had to fight someone. Every damn day at recess, I had to fight somebody. And I hated it. But I liked high school a lot more and did a lot better in high school because I didn't have to worry about that stuff. That's not a hockey thing. That's not a school thing. That's not a football thing. If you have somebody that you have to worry about, like, okay, I got to deal with this guy tonight. He's going to be a pain in the ass. I'm going to have to maybe fight him. I'm at least going to have to get in his face. He's going to get in my face. He's 3 inches bigger than me. He's got the reach on me. A little bit, man. And hockey is a game of milliseconds. Any little bit helps. If I were a Rangers fan, I would be over.
I mean, I absolutely agree with the last part.
Thank you. All right, cool. There we go. All right, we're done.
End the show. No, I mean, again, I'm fully willing to admit that it is entertaining, and I myself have been entertained.
Man. I'm talking about psychology of the game.
Well, I know. I get that much, and I even think back to when I was playing and coaching, specifically when I was playing, not that, I wasn't good at all. I didn't even start playing high school hockey till my junior year. Played like deck and roller hockey growing up, but anyway, that's aside from the point. But I remember, it was energizing and did give a boost to the team it's high school, so you don't necessarily have goons that you would run into them.
I would have been one.
Yeah, you would have been one.
I was no good at hockey, so I just would have by default.
But it was energizing to the team and the overall morale of the team to have a guy out there who would go. We had this kid, Brandon Wise. I guarantee you nobody who I played with or even knows who that kid is listening. But if that's the case, I bet Brandon Wise is very shocked that I'm name dropping him on this podcast. Anyway, Brandon Wise was a decent player.
Family owns the potato chip brand, right?
No. But this dude would just go completely out of his way to just bulldoze people.
My kind of guy.
All the time. And he was a football player, so he kind of brought that over onto the ice a little bit. And it was a spectacle especially when he would come back to the bench and somebody would piss him off, and he's like, he'd start seeing red, and then it was legitimately fascinating to watch him hop back over the boards to go see what he'd do. So there is an element of that. I just don't know that it's to the extent you might think it is. Like impacting performance to that degree? I don't know.
Like I said, even if it's a placebo effect for some of these superstars, I mean, we've seen, the only reason why I bring it up, and I think that way, is because I've seen guys that are super motivated, like Crosby and McKinnon and Ovechkin and Austin Matthews. I've heard these guys talk about, like, yeah, that really inconsequential thing pissed me off, and I had a little chip on my shoulder. Listen to Tom Brady. Nobody ever, like the last half of Tom Brady's career, when did anybody actually ever question Tom Brady or like think that he wasn't good enough? And how many times do you hear him say, yeah, they doubted me? You know, the Kansas City Chiefs, no one thought we could do it.
Yeah.
Everyone thought you could do it.
Right.
You backdoored, into the AFC West, and everyone still thought you could do it.
Well, I'm not sure where
hyper competitive people that they look for anything to give them an edge.
Well, no, they're deluding themselves to their advantage. Like, I genuinely believe that Brady and like the Chiefs and Mahomes and Kelsey believe that because they deluded themselves into it for a competitive advantage.
Guys like Austin Matthews and Sid, look, why would have the Penguins tried to bring all the, like, do you really think if Sid didn't want Ryan Reeves on the hockey team, he would have been on the hockey team?
That was a Jim Rutherford thing.
I think Sid was okay with it. I don't know that I don't think that he was banging the table for Ryan Reeves, but I don't think he said no to it. I think that
it wasn't his call, especially at that point of his career. I think in the back of his mind, he probably thought, yeah, this might help me. Maybe.
It didn't. And again, like I'm open to the idea that this is a placebo, that it actually is worse, that it's like I'm open to that. But when you're talking about hyper competitive superstars, if they think that they're going to have a little bit of extra ice and that makes them do something different, let them, I mean, like, hey, whatever it takes, I'm good with it. Like if it's those little mental games that you have to play, I think that, when we're talking about elite level talent like that, we're not talking about the gap between, your hockey ability and my hockey ability, which is, a chasm. We're talking about, the elite level, McDavid over McKinnon, Matthews over, whoever else. So I think that any little bit of edge, and again, it is entertaining. I do think that hockey needs a little bit of nastiness in it to be what hockey is supposed to be. I think that's what sets hockey aside or apart from all of the other sports. Like, yeah, it is the most, in my opinion, the most beautiful artistic sport on the planet. But when you have that juxtaposition of nasty SOBs that will rip your face off, there's just that like yin and yang, that like back and forth that you have that makes it, to me, just more entertaining than anything else on the planet. And hockey is a better sport when you have a few guys like that.
I think that was an incredible monologue to wrap us up, Edward.
There it is. Wasn't the text message that I sent you that I wanted to talk about, but did you even see that?
I did.
Did you understand any of it?
I understood what you were getting at, but there was a reason I did not acknowledge it.
Okay. On that note, this has been the Breakdowns and Breakaways podcast. For Danny Shirey, I am Eddie Provident. Don't forget to like and subscribe and on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Substack and
do all the things.
Yeah, X and Twitter and Gmail and Instagram and MySpace.
Yeah.
All that fun stuff. And we will catch you next week on the Breakdowns and Breakaways podcast.